So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Well, sorry, good afternoon. It's morning where I am. Very excited today to have my good friend and colleague, Antoine, who's joining us live today, actually from Beirut, talking to us today about how to pitch yourself. So for those of you joining us for the first time, the lunchtime session is something that I created in the first lockdown in the UK, actually, as a way for people who are independent consulting, freelancing, or who are job seekers, as a way for people to connect. I personally found that I was missing connection and intelligent conversation and not having that support network. And it was kind of selfish. I wanted to have other interesting, fun, bright, dynamic people to talk to. So I thought, hey, let's just do a network. But no, the idea is that we help and support one another. We use this time to learn new things, to see what's happening in the market. What are the trends? How do we project ourselves? How do we apply for jobs? We've had people come on talk to us about how to do LinkedIn, how to prepare for interviews. We've had people come on and talk to us about I'm just trying to think now, what was the last one? Interim executive roles, how to apply for them, where they are, where the trends are. And we've had somebody come and talk to us about networking. And today, actually, this is I think this is something that's probably all of us are going to get an opportunity to do in the next couple months as we apply for jobs, as we are going on networking sessions online, and as we also apply and pitch for projects. So without further ado, I'm going to just quickly introduce myself. So I am an MBA 03D. I did actually all of my MBA in Fontainebleau and have been in the UK since. I am Canadian and Kenyan by origin. I'm now also have a British passport for my sins. I am a CEO and leadership advisor. I advise on growth and innovation, primarily through new products, through expansion through other countries and scaling, and through corporate startup engagement. And today I'm very happy to welcome Antoine Abu Samra, who is a 3-time CEO and entrepreneur. He's an MBA as well, 03.
04.
Sorry, 04J, thank you. And he's got over 25 years experience being a CEO and an entrepreneur. He's also a professor in Lebanon. And since he is doing the session for us on how to pitch yourself, I'm going to let him actually introduce himself. He'll get more details on him. He's going to give us a little example as we go through the session. So welcome, Antoine. Very quickly, housekeeping. If everyone can keep themselves on mute until we get to our group sessions, or when you're ready to ask a question, that would be fantastic. Also, videos are optional for the first part of this, but when we do get into the breakout sessions, I will request all of you to put your videos on. So the way that we're going to do this, we're going to have about 20 minutes of presentation, including Q&A. And then we're going to give you about 5 minutes to actually prep your pitch for those of you who haven't had a chance to work on it, or for those of you who want to improve. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into groups, so small groups of 3 to 4 people, where you'll have time to actually pitch yourself. So practice your pitch, and there'll be an opportunity for them to give you feedback and for you to improve on that. And then we're going to come back into the group, and we're going to ask people to, we'll either you can volunteer yourselves, or we'll try not to randomly select. But this is a friendly group. We're not formal. So, and then we'll get an opportunity for feedback from Antoine and from others in the group. And also to let you know 2 things. Number 1, we are recording this. So if there's any point that after the session you want to go back and review some of the points that Antoine will go through, you'll have an opportunity to do that. And also Antoine will be sharing his presentation with you. So there we go. Any questions before we start? Okay, so Antoine, over to you. I'm just going to pin your video. Katie, do you know how to do that? Actually, pin. So does everybody have Antoine now as your your central protagonist? Okay. Anyone doesn't have Antoine as the key person? Okay, Antoine, over to you. Welcome and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rahima, for hosting me today. Hello, everyone. So before we start, I'm going to share the presentation just to make sure that everyone sees it. Okay. Can everyone see it?
Yep.
Okay,
yes,
good.
Yep.
Okay, great. So it's a pleasure to be part of this group today and talk to you about how you craft your story and how you talk about your elevator pitch. So hi, my name is Antoine Abou-Samra. I'm a CEO, three-time CEO with 30 years of experience, and I worked in many different industries across the world, industries from media to finance to education. I'm a go-getter, and I'm trying to always get results into the job that I do. Now, what I just said right now is the wrong way of presenting yourself. Because at the end of the day, there's a few things in what I said, besides the tone, which is kind of lame, besides the things that you must have heard like 1,000 times. And so it's very important that the first thing that you say strikes up a note, a key in the listener. Now, despite what your mother told you when you were young and afterwards, that you're the brightest, you're the smartest, you deserve everything in the world, the problem is that whenever you engage in a conversation with someone, it's not about you. It's never about you. And I think that one of the key elements about pitching and crafting your story is that it's never, ever about you. And the reason why it's never about you is that when you talk to someone, their mind is all over the place. So attention rate is very short, and they're trying to find ways of what you're telling them makes sense to them, helps them in one way or the other to achieve whatever issue, problem, or things that they have. If you cannot catch their attention, okay, then you're going to have a problem. So this is the reason why most of the time the pitches that people say are wrong, because they focus on themselves, thinking that, you know, I have a great experience, let's talk about this. And the problem is that the experience that you have, most of the time, there's plenty of people that have the same type of experience or kind of similar. And you need to differentiate yourself. And if you can differentiate yourself, then it's going to be very hard for you to actually make a difference with your listener and catch his or her attention to take the conversation further. Now, the other problem that people have when they are actually talking about themselves is that they want to talk about everything they've done. And the problem with that is that when you talk about too many things at the same time, you're diluting the message. And you can't be everything to everyone. You need to focus on something very specific to be able actually to drive that point across. The attention span of your listener is so short that if you talk about like 15 different angles of your experience, then they're going to be lost and you're going to lose them on the way and lose the message and lose the opportunity to potentially have a job or sell your business or whatever it is. Now, how do you raise you need to raise the interest, okay? And this is always the start of the conversation. If you are able to catch the attention of the listener, then you will be able to have further discussion. Now, the idea behind the pitch and famous elevator pitch is that you have 30 seconds to a minute to try to impress the person so that they're going to keep on asking questions or set up a meeting afterwards, something like that. And this part, if you can catch the attention within 30 seconds to a minute, minute and a half, whatever short amount of time you have, then you lost the opportunity. And it's easier said than done, because when you look at your experience or all the things you've done, you're going to realize that there's so many things that you've done that you want to talk about everything. And you can't do that. So you have to make sure that the focus is there. And you have to make sure that whatever you say has a proper meaning. If you ask yourself the question, so what? It is very important to be able to answer that question. So you give an example of something that you've done. So what? Does it add anything to what I do? If it doesn't, why talk about it? Because in those 30 seconds, you can talk about everything. So the so what part is crucial. It's very important. You will have afterwards the opportunity to talk about more things. But when you start, the focus and going to the essential is extremely important. If you don't do that, you're going to miss out your chance. Now, the final step of the key elements, and these things are not rocket science at the end of the day, is that you have to adapt to your listener. So if it's a job interview, there's a certain way of talking about yourself, and we'll be more focused on that today. If you're an entrepreneur pitching an idea, there's different ways of doing things. If you are in a networking session and just talking about what you do in life, there's another way of doing that. So you need to adapt to your listener to make sure that the message you're getting across is really getting to them. Now, what it's not. Now, sometimes people think, I know what I've done so well that I can ad-lib, I can improvise. Now, the problem is, improvisation is nice, but it's always good to have some kind of preparation to be able to know, okay, this is where I'm going to, this is what I want to talk about, and then you may improvise around this, but the key elements need to be there, because sometimes you're going to be caught off guard and you're going to meet someone without expecting it, and you need to deliver that pitch. So it's something that needs to be ingrained, maybe not word by word, but you need to know about it. You don't have to rehash your CV, okay? It's an opportunity to be modest. You have to sell yourself, but at the same time, being modest, bragging too much around is not the best way. So finding the right balance is very important. Don't try to cluelessly, potentially ramble. Now, you could do that, okay? But it's somehow trying to find always the theme that is there. So if the way you talk is specific to you, and there's one more thing that I'm going to add to that slide, is that it's your voice, okay? So don't try to imitate somebody else. Don't try to just do exactly as you've read, let's say, in some websites or some coaches that are telling you. It's your voice, and it's you that you're portraying. And it's very important for you to come out as genuine, okay? So don't ramble out. It needs to have basically a good structure. And all the structure that you need is basically to have a good story. Now, in the next few minutes, what I'm going to be talking about are the important part of story making. And this is something that is not directly related to the pitches per se, but the pitches are actually using those elements, okay, that make for good stories. And it has been proven everywhere and for thousands of years that the best way to somehow convey an idea, convey an opinion, convey anything is through story. So the story usually has 4 elements. First of all, there's a character. Now, here the character, it's not you. You're not the hero of the story. The hero of the story is the person you're talking to, because they are trying to achieve something, okay? And these people are trying to find a way to get out of the mess they're in, the stress they're in, the issues at work they have, their life problems, their psychological, philosophical problems, whatever it is. Now, that character has something very specific, which is a problem that keeps them awake at night. And someone would listen to you only if they have a problem. If everything is fine with them, they don't have a specific issue with what they're doing, then they're not going to listen to you. So you have to make sure that there is a problem that is actually important and that matters to the character. Then you come with a plan. Okay, so you are the person who's going to guide them and going to help them to find a solution to save them from their problem, to save them from the villain that is actually trying to mess up their lives. And the way you come up is that you support them in that quest of finding the solution. And then finally, at the end of the story, there's the success. It's how is their life going to change after using your product, your service, your advice, whatever it is. And if those elements are not present, then your story is missing something. Now, when you take the core of what storytelling is, and you start applying it to a pitch template, this is how it's going to look, okay? So first of all, you start with a brief intro, okay? Something that spikes the interest, try to make it very short, and then you start talking about some other. Here you could either talk about the present that you're working on, the things that you're working on. You can start with the past. It's fine. You can mix these around. Talk about your current role, what you're doing, with the accomplishment that you've done. At least do one of these, okay? And it's very important all the time to show that through your action, that you are able to solve a problem. So when you look at the problem action results, is that you need to state that very clearly so that you guide the person listening to you to the skills, the assets that you have that allow to solve that issue. And don't forget that this has to be linked to what you want to offer them afterwards. And this comes at the end, the future. How do you look at the future? The future is how you want to engage with these people, how you want to be part of their story to support them, how you're going to guide them to solve that problem. And it's very important to structure these. So very simple, brief introduction, talk about the present, what you're doing right now. If you're not working right now, just go directly to the past or start with the past, it's fine, okay. Tell them about what you've done, what you did in terms of actions, the problem that you solved, and the results that came out of it, okay? And when it goes to the future, you need to make somehow an offer to link what you just said to how you can support them in the future in their company, okay? So I'm gonna give you an example, before that, sorry. Always remember that you have to relate to the interviewer's challenge and difficulties and why they should care about it. So it's pretty straightforward. Always adapt to what they're looking for, the issues that they have, and show properly that you have the skills to help them solve the problem that they're going to have. Okay, so here's an example. So this is a bad pitch. Okay, so the way I started was bad, and it's very important to really think about some of the stuff that you're going to say. And most of the people, when you read their pitches or they write down some of their introduction, it sounds like the rehash of a CV. It's sometimes general, etc. So I'm a 3-time CEO, entrepreneur, and coach, 30 years of experience, worked in several industries, which I mentioned, have a track record in turning around companies and creating growth strategies. Okay. Probably people must have heard that 1,000 times, not very interesting. So how do you turn around the experience that you have into something that has more structure and goes directly to the core of the issue? So this is, I'm not gonna say good, but better, okay? It's one take of how you want to approach a better type of pitch. So you start with the who, okay? So 3-time CEO with 30 years of experience, focus on making companies successful through the key driving forces of people and strategy. So I established what my professional persona is, what my focus is on, okay? People and strategy. Now, in part 2, I'm gonna talk about the achievements. So you can do 1, 2, 3 examples, okay? Here I just done one, but this is going to give you the idea of the structure. So in my last turnaround, the Spanish luxury company made losses due to poor departmental synergy and a misaligned strategy. So probably I know that the company has some issues with potentially these kind of things, strategies and synergies and things like that. So this is what I've done. So the action part. I overhaul the strategy by focusing on the company's unique differentiating values and coach key people to work in synergy to achieve the new objectives. Okay, so it's a bit redundant in terms of the words, but you get the point. Okay, the pitch that you're going to develop is something that you're going to be rewriting and preparing and really honing as you go along. Then you look at the results. Within a year, the company made close to 300,000 in profit versus 700,000 euros in losses the prior year. Sales increased by 5%. Departments were aligned and engaged to continue the strategic shift. Okay, so I linked to my action, gave a result, try to quantify as often as possible. It will really be helpful. Now, the third part is the future. Now I work as an independent advisor and coach to share my experience with companies faced with the 21st century challenges. Okay, so I'm starting to project what I'm trying to do, making sure that this is a fit with the company that I'm pitching to. And then part 4 is how can you help them? okay? So let's say you have identified an issue that the company has. And in this case, one of the challenges in your industry is how to successfully incorporate millennials and provide them with the right environment so they stay. So it's a people aspect, okay? And what I can do is that I believe that my experience in an understanding of people dynamics and development can support you in this strategic shift. Now, you've come to some kind of a conclusion of that part in which you are not only stating what you've done, but you have recognizing what the issues, the problem, the villain that the hero has, which is the company you're pitching to, and you're coming with a plan, okay? Now, what is interesting is that this is just the beginning, okay? Now the discussion should go to another level, because if you are striking the right notes with the interviewer, then they will definitely ask you further questions. And this is what you're trying to do. You want the people to get an interest so that they can open up the conversation, okay? And then that you go to the next step. And I think this is very important to understand. The pitch in itself is not an end, it's just the beginning. And if you are able to craft it the best way you can, and you're going to tweak it along, but it's going to help you getting into that other level of conversation. And when you get to that point, you are putting more odds in your favor to potentially land that job. So this is the overview. As I said, it's not rocket science, okay? But now it's your turn. So
Antoine,
yes.
Sorry, before we move on, there's been a few questions that have been coming through, actually, and I know you've got these slides at the end, and we've discussed this. For those of you who have been messaging me, we've discussed where we actually focus this. There are some questions on people that actually would like to know two of the other slides that you mentioned. So around the pitch, there's some people who already have jobs or who running their own companies. So
Okay.
regarding the pitch, so we've talked about the job interview pitch. If we can cover the other two things that you mentioned, one about pitching your company and one about pitching yourself in a networking environment.
Okay, so I've added the slides at the end afterwards. Okay, one is the networking. Okay, within the networking setting, what is different is that usually people's attention is very low. And what you need to do in this case is probably have the shorter version of the pitch, which is around 30 seconds to a minute. Okay. Here, the objective is to get a follow-up call, a follow-up meeting, have a coffee, virtual these days, but something to go afterwards. So you have to create a desire, okay? And that desire is how to get the person's attention. So yes, you have to talk about what you did, how you did it, and the result of your action, but you have to find ways of actually striking their attention, their imagination, so that they want to know more about you. And this takes practice, because you have to boil down even further your experience and get to the essence of it, okay? So this is about networking. And then finally about entrepreneurs. It started with the elevator pitch with entrepreneurs. Here, it's basically introduction about what you do so that they know what you do, what your objective of the company is. Talk about your unique value proposition, your USP, unique selling proposition, okay? Which is very important because, and you have to talk about one. And this is why being focused is also extremely important. You always think about, you're done with your business model canvas and you're done with your business model and everything. And there's so many things you want to talk about. You need to choose one that makes the reason why you're so different, and you can help this potential VC or angel or private equity or whomever investor or strategic partner go with you and buy into your idea. Try to quantify it if possible, and ask question to further the conversation, showing that you are interested as well in their in the problems or the issues or the challenges that potentially the investor has. And this is a way also to open up the conversation, because entrepreneur, you start with the elevator pitch, then you have like a 2-paragraph that you're going to send them, and if they're still interested, you're going to go with the executive summary. So there's a whole process to go through, okay? So this is basically, the structure is about the same, but there's some tweakings that you need to do as well. Now, as we were talking, and I know that probably more of you have questions, we'll be able to do some follow-up afterwards. I'll tell you about that when we finish the presentation. So right now, I will leave that slide up. Sorry, can you see it? And I will share with you. I will share with you a link. So if you want to download the slides.
Antoine, do you want me to do that, or do you have?
Yes, because I'm not sure I can have access to the chat.
Yeah,
oh,
I'll
yes,
do it.
do.
You should have access, but
yeah,
I can. I'll just throw it up there now.
Okay,
so this is. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I do is I leave this slide up, so it gives you the structure. And you'll have about, if I understand well from Brahima, you have about 5 minutes to work on it individually.
Yes.
You can download the slides right now so that you can basically have them under you, look at the examples, etc. And
Antoine, do we have time for questions? There's Francois.
Yeah.
Francois. Okay. The balance between being modest and bragging. So this person's talking about cultural issues. So for example, Americans were probably much more bragging, if you will. They're probably much more upfront about their accomplishments versus in Europe.
Yes, adapt to the listener, adapt to the culture of the listener. Because if you are talking to a European, let's say to a German, then tone it to the way Germans are used to listen. If you're pitching to an American, different way. So adaptation is very important. It doesn't change you, it's just changed the way you are basically portraying yourself to them. And but the essence of what you're saying is going to be the same.